The border station floated in silence between two stars. It was a massive ring of steel and glass, built by the alien authority that controlled the sector of the galaxy. Countless ships arrived here every day, carrying goods, travelers, and migrants. Every one of them had to pass through inspection. The officer in charge of the sector that day was Varn. Varn belonged to a tall reptilian species known for their strict discipline. His scales were dark gray, his eyes narrow and sharp. He wore a black uniform with silver markings on the chest that showed his rank. For him, duty was everything. He believed the law was clear and there was no room for exceptions. He stood inside the control chamber, where screens surrounded him in every direction. Ships appeared as glowing dots moving slowly in lines toward the checkpoints. His job was to approve or deny access. Each traveler had to prove their purpose, their cargo, and their loyalty to the border laws. That day seemed like every other. Cargo ships came, passengers waited in long lines, and most requests were ordinary. Varn gave his decisions quickly and without emotion. Then, a small silver ship appeared on his scanner. It was older than the others, with scratches on its hull and weak signals coming from its engine. The ship carried a single human passenger. Varn leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Humans were rare in this sector. Their colonies were still far away, and most aliens thought humans were reckless and unpredictable. Varn had read many reports about them. Some spoke of bravery, but most told stories of trouble. Humans rushed into danger, ignored warnings, and caused conflicts. Varn disliked their nature and believed they were not ready to live among other species. He pressed a button, and the communication screen lit up. The image of a young woman appeared. She had short dark hair, tired eyes, and a calm but determined face. "This is Myra," she said politely. "Requesting entry into your sector. I am on a research mission. My documents are uploaded." Varn opened the file she sent. It showed research notes, travel permits, and a letter from a human colony. Everything looked correct, but his suspicion remained. "What is the purpose of your mission?" Varn asked in his cold, steady voice. "I am gathering data on cross-species medical conditions," Myra explained. "It is important for my people, and it may help your worlds as well." Varn's tail twitched. He had heard similar excuses before. He believed most humans used research or exploration as a cover for their hidden goals. "You will not be granted entry," Varn replied. His tone carried no hesitation. "Humans have caused enough problems at borders. This station does not require your presence. Turn back." Myra's eyes widened. She leaned closer to the screen, her voice urgent but still respectful. "Please, officer. I am not here for trouble. My work is serious. If you deny me, I will lose months of progress. I only ask for a small chance to continue." Her words had a tone of sincerity, but Varn ignored it. His mind was fixed on his judgment. He believed that keeping her out was safer for everyone. "The law is clear," he said. "Entry denied. You will leave this sector immediately." Silence filled the channel for a moment. Myra's face showed disappointment, but not anger. She nodded slowly, as if she had expected this. "Very well," she said quietly. "I will go." The screen went dark. Varn leaned back in his chair. He told himself he had made the right choice. His duty was to protect the border, not to sympathize with outsiders. He had followed the rules, nothing more. Still, a strange feeling lingered in his chest. He shook it away and turned back to the next ship in line. Hours passed. The border continued to operate smoothly, but the image of the human woman remained in his thoughts. He remembered her calm eyes and her steady tone. She had not begged or shouted. She had only spoken with quiet determination. That was unusual for a human. Most would have argued or tried to trick him. He pushed the thought aside again, reminding himself that humans were all the same. Outside, Myra's small silver ship drifted slowly away from the station. Alone in her cockpit, she stared at the stars ahead. Her hands gripped the controls, but her mind was heavy. She had come so far, crossing dangerous routes, hoping to bring her research where it was needed. And now, with a few cold words, the door had closed. She checked her systems. Her ship was not in the best condition. The fuel was low, and the engine needed maintenance. She had hoped to repair it after passing the border. Now, she had no choice but to find another path. She sighed and whispered to herself, "I cannot give up. Not now." Her ship turned slightly, engines glowing faint blue as she guided it toward open space. She had no clear destination, only determination to keep going. Back in the control chamber, Varn's assistant, a younger officer named Rel, noticed his superior's silence. Was there a problem with the human? Rel asked carefully. "No problem," Varn replied without looking up. "I followed the law. That is all." Rel hesitated, then said, "She seemed different. Not like the reports." Varn turned his gaze sharply. "Do not let appearances fool you. Humans are unpredictable. They must be kept away for the safety of this sector." Rel nodded, though doubt flickered in his mind. He said nothing more. The day ended as usual. Ships came and went. But when Varn returned to his quarters, he could not rest. He stared out of the large window that showed the endless field of stars. Somewhere out there, the human woman was flying alone, denied and unwelcome. For the first time in many years, Varn wondered if he had been too strict. He reminded himself that doubt was weakness, yet the thought remained. Perhaps humans were not all the same. Perhaps this one, Myra, had been honest. The border station grew quiet as the long day ended, but Officer Varn remained at his post. He was known for discipline, and he never left until every patrol report was complete. His sharp eyes moved from one glowing screen to another, checking the movement of ships leaving the station. Among the many signals, one faint dot caught his attention. It was the small human vessel. Myra's ship was still close, drifting slowly instead of speeding away. Varn narrowed his eyes. "She has not left," he muttered. His tail tapped the floor in irritation. Rel, his assistant, looked up from his console. "Perhaps her ship is slow. Or maybe she is trying to find another path." Varn grunted. "Or perhaps she refuses to obey orders. Humans often think they know better." Still, something about the way the signal flickered on the screen made him uneasy. It was not moving steadily. Instead, it drifted in irregular patterns, like a ship with failing engines. Minutes passed, then a sudden warning tone filled the chamber. Myra's ship sent out a weak distress signal. It lasted only a moment before fading into silence. Rel turned quickly. "Officer, the human ship is in trouble. Shall we dispatch a rescue team?" Varn's jaw tightened. His first thought was to ignore it. She had been denied entry. Her safety was no longer his duty. His responsibility was the border, nothing more. But the image of her calm face returned to his mind, along with her words about her mission. "She is outside our border," Varn said firmly. It is not our concern. Yet even as he spoke, he continued to stare at the faint dot on the screen. It drifted farther now, toward a cluster of dark shapes moving across space. His scales prickled as he recognized the danger. The asteroid belt. The belt was infamous, a field of giant rocks pulled together by unstable gravity. Many ships had been lost in its depths, torn apart by collisions or trapped forever. If Myra's ship entered it with failing engines, she would not last long. Rel noticed Varn's hesitation. If she dies there, her death will be on the record, Rel said softly. It may bring questions. Perhaps even shame to the station. Varn's claws tightened around the edge of his chair. He hated the thought of leaving anyone to die, even a human. Still, it was against protocol to act without approval. He rose from his seat. Prepare my patrol craft, he ordered at last. Rel blinked in surprise. You are going yourself? Yes, Varn said. His voice was cold, but inside he felt a strange storm of conflict. I will confirm her status. Nothing more. Within minutes, Varn's patrol ship launched from the station. It was small and fast, built for pursuit and defense. He sat in the pilot's chair, his claws moving across controls with steady skill. The engines roared as he guided it toward the asteroid belt. The stars ahead grew darker as the ship approached. Massive rocks spun slowly, some the size of mountains, others no larger than a home. They crashed into each other, sending smaller fragments drifting in deadly clouds. Between them, Varn caught sight of Myra's vessel. Her ship drifted helplessly, its engine glowing weak and broken. Sparks of light flashed along the hull where systems had failed. Foolish human, Varn muttered, though his chest tightened as he saw the damage. Why did you not turn back when I ordered you? He brought his patrol craft closer, careful to weave between the spinning asteroids. The silence of space made the danger even greater. One wrong move and his ship too could be crushed. As he neared Myra's vessel, his scanner showed faint life signs. She was alive, but weak. Oxygen levels were dropping fast. Varn opened a channel. Human vessel, respond. This is Officer Varn. Static answered him. The communication system was dead. There was no time to wait. He engaged the docking clamps and locked his patrol ship against hers. Air hissed as the passageway sealed, and then he forced the hatch open. The inside of Myra's ship was dim, filled with the smell of burning wires. Lights flickered weakly. He found her in the cockpit, slumped against her chair, unconscious. Her skin was pale, her breaths shallow. For a long moment, Varn stood in silence. Here was the human he had rejected only hours ago. She had asked for help, and he had denied her. Now she lay before him, helpless and close to death. He lifted her carefully, surprised by how light she felt. Carrying her across the passageway, he placed her on a medical bed inside his patrol craft. The scanners confirmed her condition: oxygen loss, fatigue, and shock. She would live, but only if treated quickly. Varn adjusted the settings, allowing fresh air to flow around her. Slowly, her breathing grew steadier. Her eyelids fluttered, and she opened her eyes. When she saw him, her gaze sharpened in confusion. You, she whispered weakly. Yes, Varn said, his voice heavy with conflict. You are safe for now. Myra's lips curved in a faint, tired smile. I thought you wanted me gone. Varn did not answer immediately. His eyes stayed fixed on the stars outside. You should not be here, he said at last. But I could not let you die. Her eyes closed again, her strength fading. Then, thank you, she murmured before sleep took her. Varn sat in silence beside the bed. He did not like the feeling that stirred inside him. It was not duty. It was not law. It was something else, something that made him uneasy. He had gone against protocol for a human, a species he had sworn to distrust. Outside, the asteroids continued their endless dance, crashing and drifting through the void. Varn knew they had to leave quickly before the field swallowed them both. He turned back to the controls, setting a course away from the belt. As the patrol craft moved, he glanced once more at Myra. She was alive because of him. The patrol craft glided through the asteroid belt with careful movements. Officer Varn's hands rested firmly on the controls as he guided the ship between spinning rocks. Each asteroid turned slowly, yet even a small collision could tear the hull apart. He felt the weight of danger pressing down with every second. Behind him, Myra lay on the medical bed. Her breathing had steadied, but she remained unconscious. The scanner above her showed a weak heartbeat and low energy levels. She needed rest, food, and stable oxygen. Varn glanced at her once, then turned his attention back to the flight path. The asteroid field was not only dangerous because of rocks. Rumors often spread about raiders hiding among the shadows, waiting for helpless ships. Varn's eyes scanned the monitors carefully. For now, no signs of enemies appeared. His patrol craft shook as a large fragment scraped the side. Sparks burst, and a red warning light blinked. Varn growled softly, tightening his grip. Hold together, he muttered to the ship. He pushed the engines harder, weaving between two giant asteroids. At last, the scanner showed open space ahead. When they broke free of the belt, Varn allowed himself a small breath of relief. The stars shone brighter, the danger left behind. He checked the ship's systems. Power was low, and the hull was scratched, but they were safe for now. Myra stirred on the bed. She moved slightly, her eyes opening halfway. Her voice was faint. "Where am I?" "You are on my patrol craft," Varn answered. His voice was calm but firm. "I found you drifting in the asteroid belt." She blinked slowly, trying to focus on him. Recognition came, and her lips curved in a weak smile. "You again. The officer who denied me." Varn did not reply at once. His tail twitched behind him. "Yes. The same." "Then why?" she asked softly. "Why did you come back for me?" Varn looked out at the stars before answering. "I do not allow travelers to die if I can prevent it. Even humans." Her smile faded, but her eyes showed quiet gratitude. "Then I owe you my life." He turned toward her, his gaze sharp. "Do not mistake this for trust. I saved you, but that does not mean I believe your mission. I still think you are reckless." Myra gave a faint laugh, though her voice trembled with weakness. "Maybe humans are reckless. But sometimes, that is the only way we survive." Varn said nothing. He adjusted the oxygen flow to her bed and turned back to the controls. Hours passed in silence as the patrol craft traveled back toward the border station. Myra regained more strength, sitting up slowly. She studied the interior of the craft with curious eyes. The walls were sleek and metallic, lined with glowing panels. Everything was organized and precise, just like the officer who commanded it. "Your ship is impressive," she said. "Efficient, like everything about you." Varn gave her a quick glance. "Efficiency is survival. Disorder is death." That is something humans often fail to understand. Myra tilted her head. Or maybe humans just survive in a different way. Before Varn could answer, a sudden alarm cut through the chamber. The screen lit up with signals, 3 ships approaching fast from the edge of space. They were small, armed, and moving in attack formation. Raiders, Varn growled. His claws tapped the controls. They must have followed your distress signal. Myra's eyes widened. Can we escape? Not easily, Varn said. They are fast, and my craft is already damaged. But I will not let them take us. The raiders closed in, their ships firing streaks of red light across space. Varn twisted the patrol craft, dodging the blasts with sharp movements. The engines roared, but the damaged systems struggled to keep pace. Myra gripped the side of her seat, watching the flashing lights. She saw one raider moving to flank them and shouted, "Left side, high angle." Varn turned sharply, avoiding the strike just in time. He gave her a quick glance of surprise. "How did you see that?" "Human eyes notice patterns fast," Myra replied. "And I have been in fights before." Varn focused again on the battle, but a small spark of respect flickered inside him. He fired back, striking one raider's wing. The enemy ship spun away, smoke trailing behind it. The other 2 pressed harder, circling them. Myra leaned forward. "You need to break their formation. They are trying to trap us." Varn growled softly. "What do you suggest, human?" "Fly straight at the smaller one," Myra said quickly. "It will panic and break away. Then turn sharply before the larger one can adjust." Varn hesitated only a moment. Then he followed her plan. The patrol craft shot forward, engines screaming. The smaller raider pulled back in shock, losing its formation. Varn spun the ship hard to the side, and the larger raider's blast missed them completely. With precise aim, Varn fired at the distracted raider. The shot hit its engine, and it exploded in a burst of light. "2 remain," Varn said. His voice was calm again, though his tail flicked with intensity. The smaller raider retreated quickly, engines flaring as it disappeared into the distance. The last one circled once, then followed its partner. Silence returned. Only the steady hum of the patrol craft filled the chamber. Myra let out a long breath, her shoulders dropping. That was close. Varn studied her. "Your instincts helped. Without them, we might not have escaped." She smiled faintly. "So maybe humans are not all trouble." Varn did not respond, but deep inside, he felt the edge of his certainty shift. He guided the craft away from the battlefield, setting course once more for the station. Myra leaned back, her body weak but her eyes bright. She had proven herself in a way he could not deny. The patrol craft moved steadily through the dark stretch of space, away from the asteroid belt and the raider ambush. The stars around them looked calm, but both Officer Varn and Myra knew danger could return at any time. The ship was damaged, the engines strained, and power levels were running low. Varn checked the monitors with sharp focus. Each warning light on the screen reminded him how fragile their situation was. The hull had taken hits, the shields were nearly gone, and half of the defense systems no longer worked. His patrol ship was built for speed and precision, but now it limped like a wounded animal. Myra sat beside him, her face pale but alert. She had regained more strength after resting in the medical bed. Though her body was weak, her mind was sharp. She studied the monitors, noticing the lines of energy and signals that passed across the screen. "Are we safe now?" she asked. Varn shook his head. No. Raiders are like hunters. They retreat when they are injured, but they return with more. They will not let prey escape so easily. Myra frowned. Then we need to prepare. Varn turned his gaze toward her. You are not a soldier. You are a researcher. Stay in the medical bay. Her eyes narrowed with quiet determination. Maybe I am not a soldier, but I am not helpless. You saw what happened before. I can help you. Varn's tail flicked, showing his irritation. Yet he could not deny the truth of her words. In the battle, her quick instincts had saved them more than once. Against his better judgment, he nodded slightly. Very well. But do not act without my command. Myra smiled faintly. Agreed. The silence of space stretched again, but it was broken soon by the sound of an alarm. A warning signal flashed across the console. Multiple ships were approaching from behind. Varn's claws tapped the controls as he read the data. 5 raiders, he said flatly. Stronger than before. Myra leaned forward, her breath catching. They really did come back. Yes, Varn replied. And they brought reinforcements. The raider ships grew closer, their engines burning bright red like angry eyes in the dark. They spread out in formation, surrounding the patrol craft from all sides. The first blasts came without warning. Streams of energy struck the shields, shaking the ship violently. Sparks flew from the panels, and Myra gripped her seat tightly. Shields at 20%, Varn muttered, scanning the systems. We cannot withstand this for long. He turned the ship sharply, weaving between the enemy blasts. He fired back with the patrol cannons, striking one raider's wing. The ship spun out, but the others closed in quickly. Myra studied their movements carefully. They are trying to box us in. If they trap us, we are finished. Varn growled softly. I know. He pushed the engines harder, guiding the patrol craft into a narrow gap between 2 raiders. The ship shook under the strain, but they slipped through just before the gap closed. A streak of enemy fire grazed the hull, leaving a glowing scar. Shields down to 10%, the monitor announced. Myra looked at the weapons console beside her. She had never used alien technology before, but the symbols were simple enough. She glanced at Varn. Can I fire? He hesitated, then gave a sharp nod. Only when I tell you. The raiders circled again, firing from every side. Varn twisted the ship, dodging 2 blasts, but a third struck the rear. Alarms blared. The engine power dropped. We cannot outrun them much longer, Varn said through clenched teeth. Myra's eyes darted to the tactical display. Then we fight. Varn gave a cold smile, his sharp teeth glinting in the dim light. Yes. We fight. The next moment, Varn turned the ship directly toward one of the raiders. The enemy fired, but he rolled the craft, the shot passing just above them. Now, Varn ordered. Myra pressed the firing controls. A beam of blue light shot forward, striking the raider squarely in its core. The ship burst into flames, breaking apart into pieces. One down, Myra said, her voice steady despite the fear inside her chest. Do not celebrate yet, Varn replied. 4 remain. The other raiders attacked at once, angry at their loss. Varn spun the patrol craft in a sharp arc, but one blast struck the side, sending Myra crashing against her seat. Pain shot through her arm, but she forced herself to stay focused. Status, she asked. Hull breach sealed, but barely, Varn said. His hands moved rapidly across the controls. If we take 2 more direct hits, the ship will not survive. The raiders circled again, preparing another strike. Myra's eyes locked on the tactical screen. They are leaving one side weaker. If we break through there, we can force them to chase us in single file. Varn glanced at the screen, then at her. You may be right. He shifted the ship toward the gap Myra had noticed. The raiders reacted too slowly. The patrol craft burst through, engines screaming. The enemies followed, but now they were lined up one after another instead of surrounding them. Now it is their weakness, Varn growled. He fired the forward cannons. The first raider exploded, its debris striking the second. Myra quickly fired again, damaging the next one before it could dodge. Another enemy fell behind, unable to keep up with the sudden burst of speed. Soon, only 2 remained. But the victory came with a cost. The patrol craft shuddered violently. A warning light flashed red. Engines overheating, the system warned. We cannot keep this pace, Varn said grimly. The 2 remaining raiders closed in. One moved above them, the other below, ready to strike together. Myra's eyes widened. They are going to crush us. Varn's gaze hardened. Not if I strike first. With sudden force, he dove the ship downward, avoiding the top raider's blast. Then he pulled up sharply, ramming the lower raider with the side of the patrol craft. The collision shook the ship like thunder, but the enemy spun away in flames. Damage to our hull is critical, the system announced. Varn ignored it. He fired the last of the cannons at the final raider. The beam hit its core, and the ship erupted into light, breaking apart in silence. At last, the battle was over. The patrol craft drifted slowly, its engines sputtering but still alive. Varn leaned back in his chair, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Myra sat frozen, her hands still gripping the controls. Then she looked at him, her eyes filled with both exhaustion and awe. We survived. Yes, Varn said, his voice calm but heavy with strain. We survived. The silence of space returned once more. Only the quiet hum of failing systems remained. Both of them knew their ship was close to breaking. The station was still far away. But despite the danger, Myra smiled faintly. She had fought beside the officer who once denied her, and together they had defeated a force that should have destroyed them. Varn glanced at her, his eyes unreadable. He still did not fully trust her, yet something had changed. She was no longer just a reckless human in his mind. She was a survivor, and perhaps even a partner in this fight. As the patrol craft limped forward, Varn knew this was only the beginning. Greater dangers waited ahead, and the choices he made next would decide both their fates. The patrol craft moved slowly through the endless stretch of space. The stars looked calm, but inside the ship every system was failing. The hull was scarred from battle, the engines overheated, and the oxygen supply was running dangerously low. Officer Varn sat at the controls, his eyes fixed on the faint blue glow of the engines. His mind was focused, but behind his sharp expression was concern. They had survived 2 battles with the raiders, yet survival had come with heavy cost. Myra sat across from him, wrapped in a thin emergency blanket. Her body was weak from exhaustion, but her spirit remained strong. She studied the officer in silence. Varn looked steady, yet she could see the tension in the way his claws tapped the edge of the console. At last, she spoke. The ship cannot take much more, can it? Varn shook his head. No. If we are attacked again, This craft will not hold. Even without battle, the engine may fail at any moment. Myra leaned back, closing her eyes briefly. Then we have little time. He glanced at her. Time for what? She opened her eyes and looked directly at him. For the first time since they met, her voice carried a deep seriousness. I need to tell you the truth about why I came here. Varn frowned. You already explained. Research, medical studies. That was your claim. It was only part of the truth, Myra said quietly. I did not lie, but I did not share everything. I could not. Not at the border. Varn's tail twitched. Speak clearly. What are you hiding? She took a slow breath, gathering her thoughts. There is a sickness spreading through human colonies. At first, it looked like an ordinary illness, but soon it became clear it was not. People grew weak, their bodies failing one by one. Medicines did not work. The sickness spreads fast, and no one understands why. Varn's eyes narrowed. A human disease. Why should that concern this sector? Myra met his gaze without fear. Because it is not limited to humans. My team discovered evidence that the sickness can cross to other species. It does not care about blood or biology. If it reaches your worlds, it will kill here too. The words hung heavy in the air. Varn said nothing for several seconds, his mind racing. He remembered the border records. No report of such a disease had reached his station. If what Myra said was true, then the threat was far greater than he imagined. You came here to warn us, Varn said slowly. Yes, Myra replied. And more than that. I carry data collected from our studies. It is not much, but it may be the only chance to create a cure. I needed to bring it past the border. I needed to share it before it was too late. Varn leaned back, his jaw tightening. He thought of the moment when she had stood before him on the screen, asking for entry. He had denied her without hesitation. If he had sent her away, the warning would have been lost, the data lost with her. His claws tapped against the console harder now. If your words are true, then I nearly doomed us all. Myra's voice softened. You could not have known. You were only following your duty. But my judgment was blind, Varn said, his voice sharp. I allowed my prejudice to guide me. I believed humans were reckless, unworthy of trust. I did not see what you carried. Myra looked at him with calm eyes. And yet you saved me. Twice. If you had not returned, if you had not fought beside me, this data would already be gone. You may have made a mistake at first, but you corrected it when it mattered most. Varn did not answer. He turned his eyes to the stars, silent and heavy with thought. The ship shuddered suddenly, breaking the silence. Warning lights flashed across the screen. Oxygen levels had dropped again, and the engines sputtered with weak light. Myra leaned forward. We cannot reach your station like this. We need a place to stop. Varn scanned the nearby space. After a moment, his screen showed a barren moon on the edge of the sector. Its surface was rocky and lifeless, but its thin atmosphere could support limited repairs. There, Varn said, pointing at the screen. We will land and attempt to restore power. It is risky, but it is our only choice. The patrol craft groaned as he guided it downward toward the moon. The surface came closer, a wasteland of gray stone and deep shadows. The landing was rough, but the ship touched down in one piece. Dust rose around them as the engines shut down with a tired hiss. When silence returned, Varn stood. We will repair what we can. Stay here until I call for you. Myra unfastened her seatbelt and shook her head. No, I will help. He looked at her with clear disapproval. You are weak. You should rest. I have worked on ships before, Myra replied firmly. Maybe not like this one, but I know how to handle damage. You cannot fix it alone. Varn studied her face for a long moment, then gave a short nod. Very well. But do not touch what I do not allow. Together, they stepped onto the moon's surface. The air was thin, and the sky glowed faint red under the light of a distant star. The patrol craft stood crooked, smoke rising from its side. Panels hung loose, wires sparked, and one engine looked nearly destroyed. They worked in silence at first. Varn's claws moved with precision, adjusting circuits and sealing cracks. Myra carried tools, held wires, and followed his instructions. Though her hands shook from fatigue, she never stopped. At one point, she looked at him quietly. When I left my colony, they told me no alien would listen. They said I would fail before I even began. But I could not stay behind. Too many lives depend on this. Varn paused, glancing at her. He saw no deception in her face. Only determination, steady and unshaken. Perhaps your kind is not as reckless as I believed, he said at last. She gave a faint smile. Or perhaps we are reckless, but sometimes that is what is needed. Before Varn could reply, a sound broke the stillness of the moon. A sharp beeping echoed from his scanner. He looked down and felt his chest tighten. The raiders had returned. 3 new ships entered orbit above the moon, their shadows moving across the rocky surface. They had tracked the patrol craft, waiting for the right moment. Myra's eyes widened. They found us again. Varn's claws tightened around the tool in his hand. We cannot fight them in this condition. The ship is not ready. Myra looked at him with fierce resolve. Then we make a choice. We stand together, or we fall here. The sound of enemy engines grew louder above. Dust rose as the raiders prepared to land. Varn's heart pounded, but his eyes were sharp. He had doubted her before, but now he knew the truth. This human carried more than data. She carried strength, courage, and hope. The moon's surface shook as the raider ships descended. Their engines roared like thunder, sending clouds of gray dust high into the thin air. Myra and Varn stood beside the half-broken patrol craft, staring upward at the shadows that grew larger every second. Varn's claws tightened around the tool he had been holding, but he set it aside slowly. His eyes were sharp and calm, yet he knew the truth. The patrol craft was far from ready. They had patched wires and sealed cracks, but the engines would not hold in a real fight. Against 3 raider ships, they stood little chance. Myra looked at him, her face pale under the red light of the distant star. We cannot win like this. What do we do? Varn did not answer at once. His mind raced through choices. They could hide among the rocks, but the raiders would track them easily. They could surrender, but raiders never kept promises. Or they could fight, but the odds were hopeless. At last, he spoke in a steady voice. We fight, but not with strength. We fight with mind. Myra frowned. What do you mean? Varn pointed at the broken patrol craft. The ship is weak, but its systems still work. The scanners, the engines, the core. We use them not to escape, but to trap. She followed his gaze, her eyes widening slowly. You want to use the ship itself as a weapon? Yes, Varn said firmly. If we cannot flee, then we make them pay dearly to land here. If they believe us powerless, they will come close. That is when we strike. Myra hesitated. The plan was dangerous, perhaps suicidal, but she saw no other path. Her hands trembled slightly, but she nodded. Then we do it together. The raiders' ships touched down one by one, surrounding the broken patrol craft. They were larger, armed with heavy cannons and sharp fins that cut through the dusty air. Their doors hissed open, and armored figures began to march onto the rocky ground. Myra ducked back inside the patrol craft with Varn, her breath quick and shallow. They will expect us to resist. What is the trap? Varn's claws moved across the console quickly, pulling up old defense codes. I will reroute power to the engine core. If they fire at us, the energy feedback will release a shockwave strong enough to cripple their systems. Myra's eyes widened. But what about us? That could destroy this ship completely. His expression did not change. That is the choice. If we do nothing, they take us alive. If we act, we may die, but at least we do not fall as prey. She stared at him, her heart pounding. She had risked everything to bring the cure across the border, and now that mission balanced on the edge of one decision. If they sacrificed themselves, the data could be lost forever. But if they surrendered, it would be taken by raiders who cared for nothing but profit and blood. Myra placed her hand on the data device at her belt. The small disk held all the research from her people. Generations of hope lived inside it. She thought of her colony, of the faces of those waiting for answers, for healing. Then she looked at Varn. His scales glowed faintly under the red light of the console. His expression was strong, but behind it she sensed something deeper, a strange respect for her, a belief that had not existed before. No, she said firmly. We cannot throw everything away. If we die here, the cure dies with us. Varn turned toward her, his eyes narrowing. Then what choice remains? She took a breath. A different trap. Not destruction, but delay. If we can confuse them, even for a short time, we might escape. Varn studied her closely. Explain. Her hands moved quickly across the console, pulling up the ship's communication system. Raider ships are greedy. They fight each other almost as much as they fight others. If we broadcast a false signal, make them believe their rivals are nearby, they may turn against each other. For a long moment, Varn was silent. Then, slowly, his mouth curved into something like approval. Clever. Dangerous, but clever. He joined her at the console, his claws tapping alongside her hands. Together, they adjusted the comms, building a false transmission. They mimicked the codes of another raider clan, inserting threats and claims of stolen treasure. The signal was weak, but just strong enough to be caught by the ships around them. Outside, the armored raiders advanced. Their heavy boots struck the stone as they approached the patrol craft. One raised a hand, giving a sharp signal. Weapons lifted, ready to fire. Then, the comms crackled. The false transmission spread across their channels. Harsh voices filled the air, accusing one another of betrayal, demanding payment, threatening war. The raiders froze. Confusion spread quickly through their lines. Some turned to their leaders, others shouted over the comms, their voices sharp with anger. The three ships above the moon adjusted their angles, as if preparing for battle against each other. Myra held her breath, her eyes locked on the screen. It is working. Varn nodded, though his voice was low. For now. The raider group nearest to them began to argue loudly, their weapons no longer aimed at the patrol craft. Instead, they pointed at the second ship, shouting curses through the comms. Within minutes, the air turned into chaos. Raiders fought raiders, blasters firing across the rocky surface. Dust and smoke filled the sky as their ships exchanged warning shots. The patrol craft stood forgotten in the middle, like a broken stone in a storm. Varn's claws moved swiftly over the console. Engines are not ready, but if we push them, they may hold long enough for escape. Myra tightened her belt and strapped herself into the seat. Then push them. The patrol craft groaned as its engines lit with weak blue fire. Sparks burst from the sides, panels rattling as the ship shook violently. But slowly, painfully, it lifted from the surface. Outside, the raiders were too busy fighting each other to notice at first. Their weapons flashed, their voices shouted through broken comms. By the time they turned back toward the patrol craft, it was already rising into the red sky. Myra gripped the seat, her breath sharp. "Faster, Varn. Faster." Varn's jaw was tight as he forced the controls. The engines screamed in protest, but the ship climbed higher, breaking through the dust clouds. Raider fire chased them, but most of it struck their rivals instead. At last, the moon grew small behind them. The patrol craft broke free into the dark stretch of space. Myra sagged in her seat, exhausted but alive. She looked at Varn, who sat tall at the controls, his eyes fixed forward. "We escaped," she whispered. "For now," Varn said. "But they will come again. Raiders do not forget." Myra touched the data device at her belt and spoke with quiet strength. "Then we keep moving until the message is delivered. No matter what it takes." Varn glanced at her. For the first time, there was no distrust in his eyes. Only respect, and something deeper he could not yet name. The patrol craft shook as the engines strained, but it moved forward, carrying both human and alien together. Behind them, raiders fought their own war. Ahead of them, the stars stretched wide, filled with danger and hope. The patrol craft moved steadily through deep space, leaving the chaos of the raiders far behind. Inside, Myra rested in the medical bay while Officer Varn monitored the ship's systems. The engines still hummed weakly, and sparks occasionally flew from damaged panels. They had survived the attack, but the journey ahead remained dangerous. Myra sat up slowly, her body stiff from hours of lying down. She touched the data device at her belt. It was safe, secure, and still intact. The research that could save countless lives rested in her hands. She looked around the ship and found Varn sitting silently, his claws resting on the console, eyes focused on the stars. "You saved my life more times than I can count," she said quietly. I owe you more than I can explain." Varn's eyes did not leave the monitors. "You survived because you adapted. I only ensured the ship stayed in one piece long enough for you to act." Myra smiled faintly. "Still, without you, I would not have made it through the asteroid belt, or the raiders. You cannot deny that." Varn glanced at her briefly. "Perhaps." He did not say more. For a long moment, silence filled the ship. Then he turned fully toward her, his expression sharper, more serious than before. "You have something important," he said. "And the border law tells me humans should not enter the sector. But now I see that law is too simple for situations like this. You are not a threat. You are a chance." Myra's eyes widened slightly. "A chance?" "Yes," Varn replied firmly. "A chance to save lives." A chance to prove that humans can work with other species instead of causing trouble. And perhaps, a chance to change my mind about you and your kind. Myra felt a warmth in her chest. She had expected distrust or resentment, yet here was Varn, an alien officer, showing her understanding. Then I will not waste that chance, she said softly. Varn nodded. Good. But we cannot do this alone. The raiders will not give up. They may call for reinforcements. We need allies. Myra thought for a moment. I know a nearby outpost, a neutral one. They do not belong to any faction, but they provide help to travelers. If we can reach them, they may assist us with repairs and provide protection. Varn's tail twitched. And you trust humans to navigate us there safely? Yes, she said without hesitation. I have been there before. I know the route. Varn gave a short nod. Then we move. The patrol craft limped forward, engines straining but holding. Myra guided the ship carefully, avoiding asteroid fields and dark regions of space where raider scouts might hide. Varn watched the scanners, his eyes scanning every signal. Both remained alert, knowing that one misstep could lead them back into danger. After several tense hours, a small outpost came into view. It floated quietly near a distant moon, a cluster of metallic structures connected by tubes and walkways. A few small ships hovered around, and lights blinked softly in the darkness. This is it, Myra said. We will be safe here, at least for a short time. Varn brought the patrol craft down carefully, avoiding the debris floating near the docking ports. The ship landed roughly but without damage. Airlocks hissed as they sealed the chamber, and the outside lights of the outpost reflected off the metallic hull. They stepped outside together. Myra led the way through narrow corridors of the station. Aliens of many species moved around, repairing ships, exchanging goods, and speaking in languages Varn recognized and some he did not. Myra nodded to a few individuals, and they returned the greeting politely. Finally, they reached a small room where repairs could begin. Myra handed the data device to a technician. This is important. Treat it carefully, she said. The technician nodded and immediately began scanning and securing the information. Varn watched, his arms crossed. For the first time, he felt a sense of relief. The data that could save countless lives was now in safe hands. Myra turned to him. Thank you for bringing me here. For saving me. For everything. Varn's gaze softened, though he did not speak immediately. You acted with courage and intelligence. That is why you survived. I merely followed my duty, and perhaps something more. Myra tilted her head. Something more. Varn hesitated, then said, I learned today that law alone cannot judge a being's worth. Courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act in difficult moments, those define worth, not species. Myra smiled. Then maybe there is hope for us all. Before Varn could respond, the outpost alarm sounded. Raider ships had been detected nearby, scanning the area. Varn's tail flicked sharply. They are still hunting us. Myra placed a hand on his arm. Then we fight, or we run. But we do it together. Varn nodded. Agreed. But now, we have allies. And that changes everything. Outside, the raider ships began to approach. But as they drew closer, several ships from the outpost rose to meet them. They fired warning shots, forcing the raiders to reconsider. The balance of power had shifted. Varn and Myra watched from the control room as the battle unfolded, knowing they were no longer alone. Myra turned to him. You see? Strength is not just in one ship or one person. It is in alliance. Varn's eyes softened. Yes. And perhaps humans can be trusted, after all. Myra's hand hovered near the data device at her belt. We still have a long way to go, but this is the start. Together, we can make a difference. Varn studied her, then nodded. Together. For the first time in his long career, Varn felt a sense of purpose beyond rules and duty. He had followed the law, then challenged it, saved a human, and now witnessed the power of cooperation. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly. Danger still lurked, and the galaxy remained unpredictable. But for the first time, both human and alien shared hope. A shared mission to protect life, to fight against threats, and to prove that courage and trust could cross the boundaries of species. The patrol craft, repaired and reinforced with the help of the outpost, prepared for the next journey. Myra and Varn stood side by side, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The bond formed in the crucible of danger had changed them both.